Good afternoon, yogis. Let's start with the 3 prostrations. And again, just with that thought of gratitude for the teachings that we have received. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. And as we do these opening prayers, they never say to visualize Buddhas. They do say that for preparing for meditation. So maybe you can just have in mind, if you do have an image of a Buddha, or you can imagine Buddhas all around, for they say that if you ever need help, simply just calling them within your mind brings them that much closer to you. So, opening prayers, where again we are intending to reach enlightenment for the sake of helping all beings. Here's the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a bed of flowers. The great mountain, the 4 continents, rearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make him a paradise of a Buddha and offer it to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnam Madlakam Niratayami. Always feels a little awkward when I hold this sheet as I say it. I'm so used to just having my hands in the mandala. And as we do this refuge, remember, refuge comes from wanting protection, and you'd only want protection if you have fear of being reborn in one of the 3 lower realms. So, and we'll do the first one in Tibetan, the second one in English, and the third time in Tibetan today. So, Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jamshu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Shok. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I reach enlightenment. By the goodness by the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. And again, that always there's another refuge prayer, which I sometimes get mixed up with. Anyway, the Tibetan one. Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jangshu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Shok. Okay. So by the time you listen or watch this, probably, I'm guessing Valentine's will be over. Family Day may be over. And maybe even the Lunar New Year, the official start of it, will have passed. But I'll wish you that anyway, because it all seems to be bundled up this weekend. I love it when the Lunar New Year is spaced a little away from the regular New Year, and I think this year it is especially late, like 6 weeks away from the regular New Year, because it can give everyone a chance to kind of have another fresh start. But I had wanted to start by wishing you that for a special reason. Well, one is, partly it's my birthday this coming weekend too, and in my calendar I had heard this message to just be aware of how many days you may have left. And, I was taking the average, the average male in North America lives till 79. And so I think I started calculating when I was 49, and it's a lot of days, 365 times 30 years, right? Yeah, I mean, you can say that's roughly 10,000 days. It seems like a lot. 10,000 of anything is a lot. But if you reduce it to weeks, I'm down to 1,430 weeks. And so each week on my calendar, I kind of supposed to reduce it. And I'd still say that is a lot, Someone tells you have 1,400 weeks left. It's a lot of weeks. But if I can say, how many birthdays do you have remaining? How many New Years do you have remaining? Well, for me, it would only be about 27 left. And that number is a lot less. And that one seems like one that should make you savor every one. And that might actually be more than I actually have, because in truth, my father passed away when he was 38, 39. My mom's still alive, she's 82. So if you average that, maybe I only live till 61, 62. So yeah, that would definitely reduce, 9 more birthdays left. Not a lot. And to be really truthful, you just don't really know when you're going to pass away. I told you 2 months ago, before this course, I got hit for like the 4th or 5th time. And this time it was probably the least I don't know whether it's less painful, but the car was moving the slowest. And so I was kind of surprised that the after effect of it now is that I'm like extra hyper alert when I go through an intersection, which I probably should be, I've always been, but I seem to kind of check out the cars to make sure nobody's going to do anything crazy more before I cross an intersection now on my bike or in my car. But yeah, maybe 1 week I won't be recording anymore. And if that's the case, it might mean that is it for this life. Not meant to be depressing, but again, the theme of this course is meditation. And as he said, the main reason people don't is they don't feel like it. And so it is remembering that we have limited time, and remembering that not many things you can bring into your next life, but your practice, the karma from it, the practice of it. This is why prodigies, when they're born, I was trying to think of one I've heard of recently, but if it comes to me later, but prodigies who are, think of Mozart, Beethoven, at a very young age, they're like already really highly skilled. According to Buddhism, it isn't because it was just lucky. Those prodigies, it's not usually because of their parents forcing them to learn, to practice. According to Buddhism, it's from their previous life where they've been practicing. So I am sure my ability to sit in full lotus came from practice beforehand, because I never needed to work on my hips or knees or ankles to be able to sit comfortably in that. So yeah. And then there's one more point that they were sharing in class, that they say, even if you're living a very moral life, we do a lot of bad deeds during the day. And one would say, could argue you don't really do a lot. Maybe you're one of those who don't say a lot of things you regret, but then be aware of what you think, because that also creates karma, and that repeated over and over can lead to a rebirth in the lower realms. So the example Geshe Michael Roach starts off this class with is by saying, we might think it is so difficult to put aside an hour for meditation, when in truth, most of us put a lot more time and effort into making sure we're fed 3 times a day, which I can attest to. It takes time and effort to go buy the food, prepare the food. Eating the food doesn't take usually very long, but then you got to clean up, planning the next meals, planning what food you're going to use up in the fridge. There's a lot of time spent. And definitely when I'm on retreat, when I have a lot of things prepared already, or made things really easy to just warm up, I realize how much time we actually do spend on food prep. Or if you ever fasted for a while, that's when wow, there's a lot of time involved. So as we seem to all make it a priority to eat 3 times a day, to basically just feed our bodies, which will eventually pass away, why not spend an hour a day on something that will last you past this life? As I said, it's like saving money for your retirement. We do that because we believe we're going to make it there. And if you believe you're going to make it to the next life, this is one of the few things that you can do that will follow you. So that was the first problem. The second one was the first problem of not wanting to meditate, and then the second problem, the main problem, is losing the object. Losing the object because you are either dull or agitated. And today they say the third problem, the second one is losing the object in terms of that, or what is it exactly? It says forgetting the object, and that you keep changing the object in different meditations, instead to stick to one object for a couple of months, as Geshe Michael Roach says. The third one is the problem of dullness, which could be either gross or subtle, and agitation, where your mind's kind of wandering all over the place. So today we'll cover the last two main problems, where most of the focus will be on this fourth one. And this fourth problem is when you do have dullness and agitation, not taking any action. And it might sound funny, but if you have sat in meditation and sometimes you get really dull and drowsy, not taking action actually is a problem. That can happen. You just kind of follow along and kind of doze out. And if you're really agitated and your mind is going off, they say usually into objects that you desire. And they always clarify it's not just somebody of the opposite sex that you are attracted to, but just something that you like, what you're going to do later, what you're going to eat later. That if you don't take any action, your mind will just follow that attractive thought, and you'll figure out what you're going to eat later, figure out what you're going to do later. So that is the problem, not taking any action. And so it might seem obvious that the antidote then is to take action, but there are different actions to take based on the two main problems. So the main one, again, is mental. One of they usually mention dullness first, because they say that one is a bigger problem, because it may lead one to think that they're progressing in their meditation, that they are improving, when in fact they're just kind of like spacing themselves out. So you remember with dullness, they use the example of like holding a cup, and you could be holding a cup loosely, and thinking that you're meditating, when really you want to be holding a cup firmly. And so again, this dullness, to clarify, isn't, I think most of us will think, okay, if the object of meditation was on Buddha, it'd be trying to make our image of Buddha more clear. But actually what they describe is to make the state of your mind more clear, almost like the lens from which you see things you want to clean and make less dull, not the object that you're looking at. And they say the problem with this subtle dullness, where you think you're like, oh, I'm in a really peaceful place and you can sit for a long time, is that it can actually lead to gross dullness. So what are the antidotes? Like on my notes, I'm just going to show, when you think of dullness, you are another nice metaphor is to think of a really loose guitar string or violin string, that you're tightening it so that it's not so loose. Or that you say think of a pilot light on a gas stove or a furnace, a fireplace, that you're turning it up so the flame is stronger, right? That or when you're driving on the highway, that you're not making big turns, but really kind of just doing little adjustments to the steering wheel when it hits a bump, or when the car starts veering a little bit to one way or another. All right. So what are the things you can do? It basically says there is kind of 3 things that they offer, and then there's some subparts, like they always have. First one is to tighten up your concentration, to put your mind, again, on your mind, not on the object. So it is to just I think those 3 examples I just gave might be it. That you tighten up, think of your mind as, tightening it up or increasing the flame, adjusting the car so that you are going to be going straight. So they say try that, and if you still feel dull, they say move it to another object which will uplift you, uplift and encourage you. So what might those be? Well, one option is to think about how lucky we are to be alive, that we are here in a place where Buddha's teachings have taken place, that you have the health and you have the time and you have the interest in learning about the Dharma. In some of the scriptures it will talk about leisure and fortune, and it isn't necessarily that you have vacations or abundance of money, as what I kind of thought it was, but it would be that you're just not born in the 3 lower realms, that you're born as a human, and that as a human you have the cognitive ability to think of things. They say humans who are mentally handicapped can't understand the Dharma, right? So there's a few more of what constitutes leisure and fortune, and we'll kind of go into that, but that is definitely one thing, is meant to uplift you. They're also, in the later classes, are going to talk a little bit more about your Lama, your teacher. And so one of the things that you can think about is the benefits of behaving well towards your Lama. That they say there is, how they say there's great karma, good karma in helping your parents, your father and mother, because they gave you birth. There is also good karma in helping out your Lama. And obviously the highest would be your spiritual Lama, teacher, but they say any teacher for you, who's taught you anything, starting from your kindergarten teacher, can be considered your Lama. And an interesting thing that also was helpful in clarifying that, when they say helping the Lama, you may hear of, people helping transport the Lama, helping give them financial assistance, you know, helping them organize, prepare for their teachings. But they say the best way to serve your Lama is actually just by practicing. So just by meditating, you're serving your Lama. Another way they say to uplift, encourage you, is to focus on a bright light, like to actually visualize like the sun, or they say the good qualities of a Buddha. Remember, you know, the fact that they are able to help all beings by being able to manifest as any object, any other being. They know everything, that they've reached the end of their path, and on, right? So if these items do not help you, you still feel dull, they actually say third step is to actually stop the meditation. Stop and stretch. Go to a cold place. Look up at the sky. Pace back and forth. This is definitely one of Geshe Michael Roach's. He said he realized after starting to meditate, he'd see a lot of monks kind of doing that, pacing back and forth. And so sometimes I found I've had a good meditation after I've done some yoga, because my body, I've moved my body, it feels even better than ever. And then to sit is really easy. So splash face with water. But they say if you do any of these things after you do them, because you're actually physically off the meditation cushion, to go back to meditate. So that is how to deal with dullness. And then now with agitation, the other problem. You know, when I heard about it, and I think I relate with this one more, that I would close my eyes, be told to focus on my breath, and could see my mind like want to go off like within a few counts. It seems maybe not for you, but for me that seemed to be like the default. But what Buddhism describes why that happens isn't so much a busy mind, but they say that your mind is too focused. So the opposite of dull, where you're trying to bring your mind up. Here with agitation and your busy mind, you're trying to calm your mind down, which makes sense. So the same examples would be where the guitar or violin string is too tight, you know, and then you have to loosen it so it doesn't break. That you turn down the flame, right? Yeah, it would be, you know, making sure you don't make big turns on your steering wheel when you're on the highway, and then your car is going to, instead of jiggling back and forth, you're making small adjustments, right? So, you know, as opposed to helping dullness with a big arrow up, with agitation, it's a big arrow down, right? So for the same, you know, parallel to the 3 antidotes for dullness, the first one is just to loosen up on the object. And yeah, it's interesting. When I first learned this, I don't remember hearing this. So I usually would try to like focus my mind more when I was agitated. But here it says try to loosen it up. Maybe, you know, this not trying so hard, and see if that helps. Now, if that doesn't help, the second way they say to try to calm down the mind is to think about death. The inevitability, the fact that you might die very soon is something that should sober you up, should kind of calm you down. Try mentioning that to many people, and to some people, and you might notice many people don't like to talk about it. It's something that they don't want to think about. And then when it does happen, it is really painful because they haven't really prepared for it. So they say also you could think of the 3 sufferings of your body or life. They say one of those 3 sufferings is just what they call something like a headache or a backache. Like you just actually, it's discomfort. There's many things in our lives which are uncomfortable, aches in the body, things you're worried about, you're angry about, you're stressed about, worried about. Like those are obvious sufferings. If someone tells you that, you don't have to say life is suffering. There's already suffering. So that is what they just say, obvious suffering, raw suffering. There is the suffering of change. And that one means that there's suffering even with something that you really like. That if you have a really good meal, well, that will change. Eat too much, you won't enjoy it anymore. Here in Vancouver, we love the sun in the winter because we don't get a lot of it. Then by August, when they have a lot of it, then you hear, oh, I hope it's a little cloudy, or I hope it's not so hot. And then the 3rd type of suffering that they talk about is called pervasive suffering. And that is just the suffering that exists in everything in this life. And everything does, you could almost say it's part of the second one. Everything changes, but they're just saying that inherent in anything in this life we're living, there is suffering involved. It could be raw suffering, could be the suffering of change, related to our body, that we're all going to get old and get sick and die. So contemplating those things should kind of calm your mind down. And if that doesn't work, then go back to counting your breaths. Exhale 1, inhale, exhale 2, and so these will be good, kind of going over it first before we do a meditation so that you can maybe practice it. And there is this point which I am starting to realize. You hear things and it might make sense intellectually, but they say more important is that an understanding enters your mind stream. When you are someone who's a vegetarian, I think there's many reasons that one can tell you to be that, but when it really enters into your mind, it won't really be a sacrifice to be a vegetarian, to not eat meat, because the reasons for doing so are really have sunken in. But anyway, so they say if you meditate every day, your meditations will seem to be linked. And that, as you sit again, you're connecting to your past meditation. I've definitely felt that with the retreats, you know, though in some ways, to some meditators, my retreats haven't been very long. You know, I read my diary, my journal. When I go into the next one, I add more in it. And it does feel like a continuation. And they talk more about, you know, as you learn more about staying aware when you're not meditating, that the times between meditation are the times you are preparing for meditation. So yeah, things like being too tired, being too hungry, being too busy, they all will affect your meditation. And if you want to have a good meditation, then it's being aware of the things you do in between sessions. So I did notice in my notes when I first took this course that maybe I'll share that as the last point, but they say the fifth problem related to meditating is taking action when it's not necessary. Taking action when it's not necessary. And that's like when you're cruising, you know, your mind is focused and you can keep it on the object. Then you don't want to take any of these actions if you don't need to. So the antidote is just to leave it alone. Sounds kind of obvious, and maybe for that reason that's the last one. So yeah, the example they say is like when you're on the highway and maybe there's a really smooth highway, your tires are lined, you're not adjusting the steering wheel when you don't need to. All right. So he ends this class by saying that sometimes, I think I started this course by saying how this teacher, there was a big debate. The debate was whether you should focus on nothing as a way to reach enlightenment. And Kamala Shila was the other debater who debated him and, you know, won. And so that, you know, that message wasn't the one that was taught. But somehow you do know, you hear that some will say the best meditation is where you're just kind of cruising. Maybe I'm not describing this as well as I can be, but they're saying, you know, if you hear people who say, oh, meditation is where you have no thought, that comes from some people interpreting it that when you're in this sweet zone of meditating and you're not adjusting, you're able to focus, that the description of that as being the best meditation somehow passed on to beginners, you know, that for a person to get to that point, they needed to do all these adjustments. They needed to work through not wanting to meditate. And so hearing the advice of someone who's an advanced level doesn't apply to someone who is first starting. So don't think of meditating as easy. That's what I guess one of the messages I heard, that you may need to stay watchful and stay mindful. But the teacher who taught me this kind of made a big message to rejoice in your effort. That every time you meditate, it's never a bad meditation. Because even if your mind is really dull, really drowsy, really agitated, you're purifying that karma. Remember, the result of anything is not really in your control. You know, you sit down as I'm about to lead you into meditation, you won't know how your mind is. You know, you do have an ability for whatever it is, whether it's peaceful and then don't do anything, or you're not focused to then do something. You do have an ability to correct if you need to, but as much as you might want to have a focused meditation, that won't always be the case. And so yeah, there's this picture I had written in my notes, kind of like a person kind of thinking thoughts, like, you know, swearing thoughts. He said, you know, you may keep seeing them having bad thoughts until you reach enlightenment, and it's not necessarily a sign that you're not progressing on the path. So with that, I'll lead you into a little meditation. As I mentioned in class, I'm kind of trying to show different ones so that maybe you can have one which resonates with you, one that you might want to practice for a few months. So in the previous course, I had spoken about Tonglen. This is one where you help somebody who's in a bit of pain or suffering. So I didn't lead you in that one in this course, so I wanted to do it since some of you might not have heard the last course. All right, so why don't you prepare, put it on pause, use the bathroom if you need to. Otherwise, just check your meditation space is clean, clear. Again, I'm not going to go through all the watering bowls. Let's say we did the prostration at the beginning of class. I'm going to turn out the lights. Definitely check that you're warm. Have something under your legs if your surface of the floor is a little cold. If you have that sheet, I will review it. The 7 ingredients. And review the posture. Again, starting from your legs. You can try the half lotus or the full lotus. If you're doing the full lotus, the left foot on your thigh first, then the right. And cross-legged is an option. Even lying down some days, though it is easy to fall asleep. Right fingers inside of your left, tips of your thumbs touching. Checking your spine's nice and tall. Shoulders relaxed. Tip of your tongue resting where the roof of your mouth meets the top of your teeth. Lips, face relaxed. Chin a little tucked in. If you look through the middle of your eyes, you look out towards the imaginary horizon. Otherwise, closing them, leaving a little gap where you're not looking through that little gap. And starting with 10 breaths, counting 1 on your first exhalation. Just visualizing what they call the merit field. Like a field where you can plant seeds. Seeing a field with Buddhas. You can again make 3 prostrations too mentally, offering your body, speech, and mind. Making some offerings. Now if, say, the Dalai Lama was coming over to your house, what would you want to offer him as he came into your house? Maybe run through those offerings in the water bowl. Washing your feet, water to drink. What flowers would you have in your house to offer? How's the lighting? What scents are you offering up? What food would you be offering? What music would be played? And then just to look back, if you're listening to this in the morning, maybe yesterday or the end of the day, midday, what happened earlier in the day, anything you'd like to confess. Regret that you have done to others through your actions, speech, or thoughts. Regretting because you know you're planting those seeds for you yourself to receive them. And then rejoicing in some things you have done that you're happy to have planted, that you'll be happy to receive yourself. Rejoicing in anyone else's good karma, good actions, speech that they've done. And that's just requesting your teachers. Remember, you don't know who they really are. They probably are ones who are in your life. Requesting them to stay, continue to teach. That from a good karma of meditating now, listening to this class, you're going to dedicate, reserve part of it towards your enlightenment. Not have it just burn off as good, something good that happens in your life. It's something that can be saved towards your future enlightenment. So when you reach there, you can help all beings. the way that can really help them. And so this Tonglen practice requires you to think of someone who might be in a little pain or discomfort. You can include yourself, but definitely it's better if you can think of someone else. It can be a group of people, it can be a lot of people in an area, part of the world. You could even think of everyone in the world. We are all suffering. We're all sentient beings. We say there are beings on other planets in the universe. And so this practice is to just at least be able to see some of them closer to you. Whatever you see their pain to be, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or combination, see it like a dark cloud inside them. From between your eyebrows, visualize a little diamond representing wisdom. Diamond moves along the main channel across the top of your forehead, middle of your head, down the back of your head, down your spine, and stops by your heart, where there sits a small red rose representing compassion. And when this diamond meets the rose, forms a very powerful source of energy. Think like a little sun, capable of dissolving, burning anything. So as you see those you're about to help in front of you, a black cloud of discomfort you're trying to help remove, on your inhale, you're going to visualize drawing this black cloud out of their body through their nostrils, seeing it form into a tiny little dark black ball. And then on your next inhale, you're going to bravely draw it in through your nostrils, move it to your heart center, where when it reaches that area, just dissolves, doesn't affect you, just burned up. That's now as you look upon a person, group of people, you can see relief on their face. Their body is different. Face is different. Energy about them is different. And so I'll give you a bit of silence for you to do this. Again with someone else. If you notice again your mind a little dull, sleepy, tighten your concentration. as something that will uplift it, brighten it. Bright light, that you're alive, able to practice. Qualities of the Buddha. If you still feel very dull, even just get up, walk around, splash water in your face, look out at the sky, and come back to sit. And if your mind's a little too agitated, can't keep the focus on this, maybe not trying so hard to focus on it. Like loosening a guitar string. If that doesn't help, think about how death will soon come. If not soon, it will one day. Sufferings of our body and our life. We're going to go back to counting your breaths. Starting back at 1 whenever your mind wanders away. Continuing to help move the suffering. Seeing the relief when you do. Adjusting if you need. Not taking any action if you don't. like to continue, just press pause. Continue to meditate. Otherwise, enjoying 3 more breaths. Seeing a Buddha sit atop your head, sending light down your spine, sending blessings, realizations in your mind. And just tucking your chin in, rounding your back. Gently inhaling, sending your chest forward, exhaling, tucking your chin in. Moving your lotus with your legs if you are, or shaking them out if you need to. Rubbing your palms so they're nice and warm. Cupping them over your eyes, rubbing over your face. So this Tonglen practice is a great one for many reasons. If you're ever feeling really in pain yourself, I'm sure there are others who in this world are feeling the same. But they do say thinking of others helps not just them through your thoughts, but also helps yourself, taking your focus a little bit away from yourself. You all know that our thoughts affect our body, our well-being. Thoughts of stress affect our digestion, nervous system, our sleep. Some say 80% of all diseases is caused by stress. So the opposite, you might think of peace and joy as maybe ways to counter that. But they say the thought that helps you the most, your physical being, your mental, your emotional being, spiritual being, is actually the thought of helping others. Thought of helping others. And so they say in yoga, when you think of others, it draws more energy into your main channel, which when more energy is there, it shifts your breathing. Your breathing is more what it's supposed to be. It can improve your health. So yeah, this Tonglen practice you can do in meditation. They say you can do when you do a walking meditation, breath in, drawing suffering out. When you feel suffering, thinking that you are taking that on for others, you're burning it off not just for yourself, but for others. So yeah, a good practice, and one I hope you can incorporate. But we will leave it with that for today. And so we'll end with, again, the 3 prostrations and then the prayers. Thanks for the teaching, body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. And we'll do the closing dedication. I will do one time in Tibetan, one time in English. And again, the intention of putting aside part of the karma you've accumulated towards your enlightenment so that you can help all beings. So, Tibetan first. Gewa di kewo kun sunam yeshe zogsog sheng sunam yeshe lejong wei dampa kuni topar shok. By the goodness of what I've just done in giving and the rest, may I reach enlightenment for the sake of all living beings. By the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Guess I memorized a different dedication. Namaste, and see you next week.